and welcome to another edition of Inside Government for the spring 2019 semester here at Cayuga Community College, and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, where it's played on the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. In December, the Cayuga County's administrator, Justin Woods, had his first budget adopted by the Cayuga County Legislature, and in January, he had some changes in some elected leadership that he works for in that body, and since then he's had one of his signature initiatives that he wanted to put online, literally a new website for the county, Go Online, and he's been dealing with changes in the Office of Emergency Management. To talk about all this and more, we've asked Mr. Woods on to give us a county update. Welcome back to Inside Government.
Thank you, Guy. I always look forward to our chats.
So I want to start off with something more personal. You got a new addition?
We do.
So what happened?
We had our fourth baby.
Her name?
Jessa Louise Violet.
And is she sleeping all through the night?
I think so.
You are?
I am. I don't know if she is.
And this is your fourth?
This is our fourth.
Okay.
I'm up and down with the other three, and Jill's got her.
And so mom and baby are doing well?
They're doing great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you timed this perfectly because you did it right after so that you would have your budget adopted.
Correct.
But you were trying to also get to your New York State Association of Counties meeting. But we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So you put your first budget together. You started your job at the tail end of the budget process last year.
Correct.
In 2017. This was your first budget on your own for 18 for the 19 year. Were you happy with the process?
Yeah, it was an illuminating process. I learned a lot going through my first county-wide budget. I've been involved on the budget team for a city before, but never been the budget officer and been responsible for the final product. But Lynn Marinelli, the county's budget director, and all the department heads worked very well and collaboratively. I worked with the political leadership to understand what their goals and policy outcomes were, and I was very happy with the final budget that was adopted.
So besides the boilerplate, because there's some things in there that you just can't change. You can't change your payments that you have to do that will partially get reimbursed by Albany. Was there anything that was changed in a big way from what it was boilerplate of a normal budget?
There were a few things. We made some very strategic investments in areas that have been underinvested, and namely we are trying to focus on several areas. We're trying to invest in our human capital, our infrastructure, and our organizational infrastructure in terms of our technology needs. So we made investments in the organization that resulted in the law that the legislature passed and implementing the new Department of Public Works, which required an investment in some professional salaries that were beyond what had been funded previously. We invested in a significant new software, part of which is funded by New York State for the Department of Social Services to improve our case management ability. And we have continued to invest in some consulting regarding understanding what our organizational and human capital needs are to continue the work the legislature started before I arrived and continue to move some of that forward. So we just kicked off the compensation study for the non-bargaining employees to ensure that not only are we paying competitively in the market when we have to go hire new people, but also that we're paying fairly internally for comparable responsibilities throughout the organization and for gender equity.
And is that something that you'll be starting? When will you get the report back?
I'm hoping to have that report back in the late spring, early summer, so that it will inform some of the decisions that we make
for the 20 budget.
For the 20 budget.
So, were there any major changes that the legislature made that stand out to you? I know there were two that we'll get to in a second, but were there any major changes in what you submitted to the legislature that they tweaked on?
Not in terms of substance, but probably the biggest change that they made was that they cut the property tax levy down lower than I recommended and increased the fund balance draw higher than I had recommended.
So what if you used all of the fund balance that they have budgeted, and I know that's not always the case because things change, sales tax, other things change, what will your fund balance be at the end of this year? Do you have
I don't have those numbers.
What are you currently at, roughly?
The fund balance going into the budget season last year was right around $20 million.
Okay.
And so using a little bit more of that Historically, we haven't, even when they budget to use a fund balance draw, in recent years they haven't utilized it, because when you plan for things that aren't spent throughout the course of the year, sales tax performance, if it was conservatively estimated, typically we end up, even if they budgeted a fund balance draw, with a balanced budget or a revenue positive budget.
And what was the final vote on your budget?
I don't recall.
Was it near unanimous, or were there a couple of dissents?
I really don't recall.
Okay, all right.
I should have brushed up on that. I thought we'd be talking about more current.
We are. We're going to. Well, two items I want to do. One's kind of current, one's not. Always comes up every year is funding for libraries. Mm-hmm. Was that restored?
It was.
It was?
It wasn't in my initial budget proposal, but the legislature debated it, and they ended up putting it back in.
So we had Tracy Verrier sitting right there on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about, you had recommended a $25,000 cut mm-hmm. to the Cayuga Economic Development Agency's budget. Why?
Why?
Why? Yes.
What I explained when I proposed the budget was that, and I said on the CETA board, that the CETA had a very healthy fund balance, which was sizable compared to its annual operating budget. And so what I was hoping to do was to stimulate a conversation around what is a necessary funding level for them, and also ensure that they come up with a plan for using those funds, that those weren't just growing exponentially year over year.
And she agreed to that on Tuesday. But it also had what's called the law of unintended consequences in public policy. It doubled.
It did. The legislature proposed and approved actually cutting a bit more, so they ended
up
cutting
another $25,000.
Another 25. So their funding level was cut from 350 down to 300.
So that was Legislator Lattimore had, I think he had recommended another cut of 25,000.
I think so.
He wanted to have a grant writer hired for that. Am I correct on that?
That was among the topics that was suggested.
Was a grant writer, has a grant writer been budgeted for or approved?
No,
using those funds?
Nor was it put in the budget to do that when the money wasn't cut, when the money was cut.
Last year, you and, in fact, I think you did a show with Pat Mahunik, the mm-hmm. then chairman of the legislature, about proposals looking at restructuring. You talked about the compensation mm-hmm.
Issue.
We'll talk about website in a moment. Were there items that the two of you unveiled in the spring that you were able to start to implement in this budget?
Yes. In fact, there were things that were accomplished in 2018, and there were other things that moved into implementation phase. So we talked about creating a Department of Public Works. We worked through 2018 to draft that law, to get it passed by the legislature, to include funding for it in the budget. And then we hired a new Director of Public Works and a Deputy Director of Public Works who both started January 1st. So we were happy to welcome them to the team, David Gardner and Carl Martel. We proposed the website, which we've launched in record speed, really. We talked about it conceptually over several months at the policy level and the appropriation level, but from project kickoff in mid-September to going live at the end of January.
So literally less than 5 months.
Literally less than 5 months. And to turn a project of that scale around was really a testament to the employees and the project team that we put together.
So was that something that you had done you had budgeted for the 18 budget or for the 19 budget?
We sought approval for it in 18. It's funded over 3 years, and we were able to demonstrate how over the projected life of the website itself, which is averaged to be 7 years, that on an annual, we pay for it over 3, but and it includes a refresher in year 4, but on an annualized basis, it actually reduced our web costs.
So it went live about a month ago. How much does it cost annually?
So for the first 3 years, while we're paying for the website, I think it's about $60,000, and then once we're just paying the maintenance fee, it'll be about $10,000 a year. So prior to that, our hosting and some of the other web services that we were using was costing about $20,000 a year. So over the life of the website, our costs will be less than what we're paying. So it's front loaded in the first 3, and then from year 4 to 7, we just pay the maintenance cost.
So I went on the site, which is very cool. One of the items I thought that stands out is this notification item. Can you explain that to the public?
Sure. There's a variety of notification options on the new website where you can sign up to receive alerts, whether you're interested in public safety alerts or you're interested in knowing when the county legislature posts an agenda item or minutes, or if you're interested in receiving my monthly report, the county administrator's monthly report that includes all of the information going on in county government. If you're interested in the Fire Advisory Board or the Parks Commission, each one of those has a place where you can sign up to receive alerts, press releases, agenda items.
And are you able to keep track of the metrics of those of when people request things or what they're requesting? If they have an interest, if nobody has an interest in the ABC Commission, does that mean that the ABC Commission is not?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And one of the things I hope that staff will.
And I shouldn't say ABC because that's alcohol beverage. I don't mean that.
Yeah, everybody's got an interest in that.
XYZ, whatever we want to. And if you have an XYZ committee, I forgive you.
Yeah. So one of the things I hope is that eventually, and we're still rolling out some of these features. They're not all fully operational, but will be that the staff will begin to use them as well. So, for example, if I'm staffing the XYZ board and I post and I get all of the members of the XYZ board to sign up. When I post the agenda, boom, it's emailed to them. When I post the minutes, boom, it's emailed to them. And anybody who's interested in following that can follow those communiques.
And you have other features on there. You have a tracker for
citizen
requests
requests.
and that. Any other features that really stand out for you?
I think the ability to customize the information for each department to be able to maintain their information current and be trained on how to do that. And then there's also the fact that we are hosting about 18 or 20 municipal websites on the county, which we were previously as well. And that's very unique.
So I saw towns and villages. Does the city have a link on your website?
Every municipality has a link to the website, but then about 18 or 20 of them we actually host. So
versus the city that hosts its own.
Right. So if you click on the city, you'll go to the city.
Okay.
But if you click on the town of Summerhill, you'll go to a page that looks like a department page on us that has their information.
And so this is a big change from what was in the past, which was a kind of an unusable. It was usable, but was not the best system.
It served its purpose, and it was a bit dated. And this is fresh, this is modern, this is functional. This has a lot of tools that we're still training the departments and the staff on. And we're really pleased with the effort and the product. And my hat's off to Monica and to all of the people from all the different departments who worked with her on this project team.
And so in doing that, that's another one of these items that you had rolled out with Chairman Mahunik. Are there things that you'll still put in the 20 budget and beyond that are changes that the two of you outlined?
Yeah, so another one that was in the 19 budget that we proposed last year was a purchasing director that we're getting ready to go out and hire very shortly, and that was included in the 2019 budget. I think a couple of things that didn't make it into the 19 budget that will be priorities going forward is additional staff needs in human resources and in IT in those critical areas of operations that touch and help all of the other areas of government to function. They've been resource depleted for some time, and in order to function, everything's got IT attached to it these days. We're not getting less tech, we're more reliant on it. And in terms of our human needs, the Department of Human Resources is smaller than it's ever been, and we need to have enough staff capacity to recruit, attract, retain, and serve all of the employees that work for us.
The two final questions on the budget. For 18, did your projections meet expectations or vice versa on sales tax?
I can't take any credit for the 2018 budget. That was done by the legislators and the legislative team with Lynn before
I'm not
I
saying
arrived.
take credit, but...
So the budget projections for the county on sales tax for 2018 exceeded. So our portion, the county portion of what was retained after we do the divvy with the municipalities, was we budgeted $22,500,000, and it was I think 2310.
Okay. And what's your projection for 19?
For 19, we budgeted $23 million.
Okay. one of the new shifts at the beginning of the year was that Chairman Pat Mahunick had planned not to seek re-election as chairman. He became the new chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. Mm-hmm. Correct on that?
Yes.
Tucker Whitman from Fairhaven is your new chairman.
Correct.
What changes have there been between Pat Mahunick, who is Auburn-based, and Tucker Whitman, who is up in the North Country, but both legislators, two different parties? What's been the change for you operationally?
Operationally, there hasn't been a significant change. Mr. Whitman they both work full-time, and they've both balanced being chair of the legislature with maintaining their jobs and balancing their careers and families.
So these are younger guys, and I don't mean to be derogatory, but for many years the legislature was headed by either independent business people or retirees. Mm-hmm. These are guys who have full-time day jobs.
Correct. Okay. And so with Chairman Mahunick, I met with him, whose day job was down in the Southern Tier. I met with him much more frequently in the evenings and nights, and also by phone and email during the day. With Mr. Whitman, we continue to communicate by email and text, which is his preferred method. Mm-hmm. As well as he has regular office hours.
Is he younger than Mr. Mahunick if he's texting?
I think they're about the same age. It could be a little bit younger. I don't want to.
Emails are so out. It's now texting everybody.
But Chairman Whitman is also committed to regular office hours, and he made some adjustments to his work schedule.
So he has regular office hours.
He does. So he's in generally 2 days a week in the afternoons, and so that allows me to get home a little more frequently for dinner.
And any other changes in legislative changes that impact you and your staff?
Changes in what way?
You obviously have a new chair of Ways and Means.
So there's different committee chairs. A couple are the same. Some couple are different.
Okay. But nothing major that's changed.
Mr. Batman is the majority leader again. So I'm meeting regularly with the minority leader. So I'm meeting regularly with the political leadership on a monthly or bi-monthly basis to talk about their policy agenda and what I can do to operationally advance that. So
one of the big things that we always talk about every January with whoever the administrator is or the chairman of the legislature is the New York Association of Counties. Mm-hmm. They, I'm assuming, had their winter meetings? They did, the legislative conference. Did you go? I did for some of it. Why, did you get pulled back for some other reason? Yeah. So Jill was due February 1st, and so I figured that I had plenty of time to get up there and back before the 30th came. So I went up. Again, I'm still wondering why you're still here, buddy. Okay, but so you were there, but you did present. I did. On the first day of the conference, I did a presentation on shared services and developing our shared service plan throughout the county. Monica Salvage also did a presentation on developing municipal websites, and both of our presentations were very well received, and then I left when Jill went into labor. Good move, by the way. Good career move. Did other members of the legislature go? Yeah, we had a very large contingency of representatives from both parties, and it's always a great event. You learn a lot about what's going on in the various counties and different initiatives. You learn a lot about what's going on with the budget and with the state legislature. So was there a specific agenda, theme for this year? I don't recall a specific agenda. I mean, it's always the legislative conference, so it's always reviewing what the state budget, what's going on with the state budget, implementation, rollout of raise the age, all the hot topics. Because I was going to say, was there any major changes in the legislative agenda from last year? Well, one of the big things that we were focused on in terms of NISAC legislative agenda is the election reform and early voting, which obviously access to voting and is a positive thing. But some of the legislative changes that were made for early voting didn't come with funding. So there's equipment. So there's costs. There's equipment costs. There's personnel costs. There's locational costs if we don't have spaces to do early voting. And so we're bringing forward a resolution to the state legislature, to the county legislature, as a number of other communities have. And part of the NISAC agenda is calling for full funding. The AIM cuts in the state aid to municipalities is a significant hit to counties. Initially the governor proposed cutting AIM for almost all municipalities whose proportion of their budget was less than 2%. His 30-day amendments then
restored AIM funding to previous levels, but took it out of the county's portion of sales tax and tied it to potential increase to internet sales tax. But even if the internet sales tax didn't pass, it was still going to come out of the county's portion of sales tax. So
it's a net cut.
It would be a net, not just a cut, a transfer of cost from the state to the counties. So $350,000 would be the number that it would cost the Cayuga County taxpayers to have to restore that funding. And so we're going to be calling on, we passed a resolution, the county legislature did last month, as many others have, calling on the state to restore AIM funding to the municipalities.
And this is not a political question, but there's obviously a change in the legislature with both houses being the same party as the governor. They're all Democrats. Is there a worry from NYSEC that the agenda will be more centric to the urban areas of New York City versus upstate, where most of the counties are?
I don't know if that's NYSEC's particular concern as an organization. I know that because NYSEC has counties all over the state, but including Hudson Valley and Long Island. But I do know that making sure that our needs and concerns are heard is very important, and NYSEC will continue to advocate, and I know our legislators and our representatives and senators will continue to advocate for us in the Assembly and the Senate.
And I'm assuming the legislators who went with you met with the local delegation as well?
Some of them.
Okay. So you mentioned AIM, you mentioned raise the age, you mentioned election issues. How else did counties like Cayuga make out in the governor's budget, or not make out?
Those were the big hits. Was that the legislation that's being passed, or the things that are in the budget that aren't funded, and there's been a continual requirements placed. A lot of people don't understand what county government is. And county government in New York State is very different than county government in other states. Essentially, what county government is in New York State is we administer state services, and the county taxpayers help pay for the portions of them that the state doesn't. So the state mandates most of the services that we provide and helps fund some of them. So
I heard an interview last night, I think it was last night or the night before, with Senator O'Mara, who's in the southern tier, and his comment was that I'm paraphrasing, he didn't think that the governor believes in local government. And do you think Governor Cuomo gets what local government, such as counties, do?
Governor's a pretty smart guy, and I'm not going to get into a political war of words between a Republican senator and a Democratic governor, especially one that's not even in
representing you.
Yes. So I think the governor knows what county government does, and I think that he has a good working relationship with Steve Aquario and NYSEC, and I expect
he's
that
your executive director.
The executive director of NYSEC, and I expect that they're going to hear loud voices come from NYSEC when we express our concerns, and hopefully between the governor's office and the legislature, some of the concerns of NYSEC and counties will be addressed.
Any removal of any unfunded mandates, as far as you all see?
I haven't seen any.
Any new unfunded mandates, other than election?
Unfunded, no. Funded mandates, though. One of the positive things that's happened is the funding for indigent legal services. So everybody's familiar with, or most people are familiar with at least the concept that you have a right to an attorney if you can't afford one. And that goes back to a famous court case called Gideon v. Wainwright. And subsequent court cases have held that New York State hasn't met its burden in providing counsel to people who needed them. And as a result of settlement in cases in other areas, the state has just recently finalized an award to Cayuga County for $3 million over the course of 5 years that doubles our funding every year and permits us to move forward in hiring full-time staff to administer our assigned counsel program.
Will that be administered by Lloyd Hoskins?
It will continue to be. It will basically make Lloyd's position a full-time assigned counsel administrator, and we're exploring right now where the other programs that he manages, Youth Bureau and Stop DWI, where the right places in the county government for those to be administered.
So you'll merge those into others versus creating new departments?
Exactly.
speaking of departments, what is the Emergency Management Office?
What is it?
What is it?
The emergency.
Because the vast majority of people, until they read the front page of the Citizen, most likely didn't know this office exists.
Sure. The Emergency Management Office is a really important department in Cayuga County government. It does a number of things. Internally, it coordinates our emergency response planning. So working with, for example, the health department on how we might respond to a public health disaster. Working with the planning department on the hazard mitigation plan. Working with the building department and the sheriff's department and law enforcement on planning for large-scale gatherings and events. Things like the 4th of July fireworks or other events at the park or throughout the county. One of its other roles is supporting and training and providing operational support to first responders. Here in the city, you have a paid fire department and some contracted paid ambulance providers. Throughout the county, all of the other fire service and first responders are volunteer departments. And so emergency management plays a dual role. Number one, it provides training opportunities for them to meet their training needs, coordinates their training needs. Number two, it provides operational support in the event that they need additional assistance for responding to emergency events. And that's often done either through our full-time staff or through our deputy coordinators who are assigned to different battalions to provide.
And those are part-time jobs, there's 15 of those? I think I read somewhere.
Roughly,
okay.
More or less. And then we have fire investigators who investigate fires, in structure fires. And then we do the same thing, operational support training for EMS and paramedics.
So why this hit the news was that your new head, you'd only been there, I think, about a month and a half. Most likely Douglas Whitaker resigned from the position?
Correct.
Did others resign as well?
Yes. So the office was staffed with 4 full-time employees. Mr. Whitaker resigned. And previous to that, we'd had another employee transfer to a different department to pursue another opportunity. We subsequently had one of our deputy directors resign, and then another one was placed on administrative leave.
Were you surprised that Mr. Whitaker resigned after a month and a half on the job?
It was 3 weeks, but yes.
3 weeks, okay, 3 weeks. Why did he resign?
I can't get into that.
Who is handling those duties now?
So right now, we have a team of people who are contributing to supporting our operations and meeting our day-to-day needs. We've temporarily assigned an administrative person there, so we have somebody in the office full-time. I've assigned management oversight to the department to Steve Lynch, the planning director.
He'll be here next Tuesday.
And I've done that for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is that part of rebuilding our infrastructure there is getting the right feedback from the fire and first responder community. And Steve's background in municipal planning, which I also have, is well suited to facilitating those kinds of conversations.
So there's been some debate within the legislature by reading comments from several different legislators. There's some who say fill the positions that are vacant first and then reorganize, and there's others who say reorganize and then fill the positions. Do you have a particular view?
I do.
You want to share it with us?
Sure. We are advertising right now for a new director.
Okay.
We will fill that position, and then we will work with that position with the new director to build the team and the positions and the skills he or she needs around them.
And I may not be pronouncing his name right now, but you have a deputy there, correct, right now, Neil Rivenberg. Am I saying it right, Neil?
No, Neil is currently on administrative leave, so we don't have any full-time.
There's nobody there full-time now.
We've assigned a temporary administrative staff person there. Larry Digert, who's the deputy fire coordinator, has been stepping up in a big way. And then a number of the coordinators, Dave Newart, Travis Poole, DJ, a number of these guys who do an incredible amount of work for just a couple, $1,500 a year, have really stepped up and far exceeded anything, Pat Burns, far exceeded anything we could have expected. But we've got the operation stabilized. We are in communication with DISHES, the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, for technical assistance in our assessment for operational standby in the event we needed to activate an emergency operations center. So Denise Springler from 911 has been facilitating communications. Steve Lynch has been coordinating feedback and communicating out with the fire community, the sheriff, Public Works. I mean, really everybody has come. It's been all hands on deck, but what's important for everyone to understand is that there's a steady hand at the wheel, there's a plan in place, and that we are moving methodically to fill the positions we need to fill and bring all the staff capabilities on. But right now, we're able to meet our needs, and we have standby support for anything that exceeds our capacity.
We have less than a minute to go. I know you're going to give your state of the city, state of the county. You're going to give the state of the county portion. State of the city, state of the county on March 28th.
Yes.
That's a work in progress, I'm assuming, at this stage? You've got 3 weeks out. There was a time when the city manager, the mayor, the chairman of the legislature, and the county administrator were meeting on a regular basis. Do you still do that?
I meet with the city manager on a very regular basis.
So not the 4 of you anymore like it used to be?
I don't know what it was. I mean, when I came on,
again, you had people who were retirees
yes.
and had schedules that they didn't work necessarily full time during the day.
Yeah. So I meet with Jeff, several times a month on various topics. I see the mayor at more public-facing events.
Okay, and then you'll be speaking on the 28th.
Myself and the chairman, I assume.
Okay. We want to thank you for being here again. Our guest has been Cayuga County Administrator Justin Woods. We want to congratulate you again on the new addition to your family. I hope you have many, many years of joy with her.
I'm sure we will.
And patience to your wife as well. But we will be back in just a moment.
We can all pray for that.
We can. So we'll hope you'll come back and give us some updates from time to time, as you normally do, and we
Absolutely.
appreciate that. We'll be back in just a minute with an edition of Beyond the Front Page, where we'll be talking about the Auburn Business Improvement District's operation of the Downtown Visitor Center with Stephanie DeVito, as well as Courtney Casper, the executive manager, who is their experience manager for the Visitor Center. We'll be back on Tuesday with City Manager Jeff Dygert for a city update, and we'll also have County Planning Director Steve Lynch, and I don't think I'm saying her name right, but Kiva Van Der Gest to discuss next week's input session on Emerson Park before the college goes here on spring break. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your ideas for future shows and guests or questions you'd like to have asked on Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page. You can do that at cozguytho@aol.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you stick around for Beyond the Front Page, but otherwise have a good night and have a great tomorrow.